What's up, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube? It's your boy Trey Larkins with Wise Guys Sports on this Wednesday, May the 13th. Want to come on here and discuss a few topics in the sports world. Everybody remember go and follow Wise Guys on Twitter at Wise Guys _H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. And be sure to follow Wise Guys, Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. Wednesday, May the 13th. We are midway through the month. We are in the midst of the NBA playoffs. We have game 5 tonight. The Cleveland Cavaliers are in Detroit, taking on the Detroit Pistons. Game 5 tonight of that best of 7 series is in Detroit. That series is tied at 2 games apiece. In the other series in the Western Conference, the Spurs beat the Wolves last night. And so they have game 6 Friday night in Minnesota. Spurs lead that best of 7 series, 3-2. Obviously, the Thunder and the Knicks have both already advanced to the conference finals. But I want to come on here and I want to talk some NFL. And I wanted to talk about Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, if you are a Cincinnati Bengals fan or a fan of the Bengals in any kind of capacity, whether it's in Cincinnati or wherever you may be, even though there's not many Bengal fans outside of Cincinnati, you have seen the moves that the Bengals have made in the offseason. Specifically, the Bengals have made 4 key defensive additions in the offseason. They traded for defensive tackle Dexter Lawrence. They signed Boy Mafe. He's a former Seahawks player to a 3-year, $60 million deal. They also signed in free agency defensive tackle Jonathan Allen. They signed him to a 2-year, $25 million deal. And they also signed in free agency safety Brian Cook to a 3-year, $40.25 million deal as well. Brian Cook previously won his Super Bowl with the Kansas City Chiefs. And so when I look at the Cincinnati Bengals, over the last 3 seasons, here are the Bengals' defensive ranks in the NFL. And sack percentage, it's 6%. That's ranked 26th in the NFL. This is over the last 3 years. Points per game given up. They've given up 26 points per game. That's ranked 29th in the NFL. They have given up 4.8 yards per rush. That's ranked 31st in the NFL. And they give up 368 yards per game. That's ranked dead last in the NFL over the last 3 seasons, right? So I want to give the Bengals organization credit for going out and making moves specifically on the defensive side of the ball and bringing in these defensive additions. Again, they traded for defensive tackle Dexter Lawrence. They signed in free agency Boy Mafe, Jonathan Allen, and Brian Cook. All great additions defensively for the Cincinnati Bengals, because we know the Cincinnati Bengals have a top tier elite offense with Joe Burrow, with Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. But the issue has been the Cincinnati Bengals' inability to put together a competent defense. Because as great as Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins are as players, if the Bengals have an average defense, they would be in the Super Bowl contenders conversation. That's the thing about the Bengals. Their offense is so dynamic. They don't need an elite defense. So I want to give the Bengals organization credit for finally being aggressive in free agency, also making a big time trade, trading for a defensive tackle like a Dexter Lawrence. So I got to give the Bengals credit, and I have to give specifically the organization credit for being aggressive and basically making the moves that were necessary that's going to put them in a position to contend for a Super Bowl, right? But with that being said, I thought about the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL. And here are the top 5 quarterbacks in the NFL, in my opinion. This is no particular order. Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Joe Burrow, and Matthew Stafford. Before last year, the best quarterbacks in pro football, I felt like there were only 4 of them. It was Burrow, Mahomes, Allen, and Jackson. But you have to include Stafford in that conversation after the season that he had last year, winning NFL MVP and leading the Rams to the conference championship game. But to me, the 5 best quarterbacks in pro football, again, Patrick Mahomes, Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, and Matthew Stafford. And looking at the moves that the Bengals made in the offseason, it had me thinking about, okay, which elite quarterback has the most pressure heading into the 2026 NFL season? And I believe the quarterback that's considered elite, that has the most pressure heading into the 2026 NFL season, is Joe Burrow. Because Patrick Mahomes, he's coming off an ACL injury. Matthew Stafford, he did lead his team to a conference championship game last season. And Matthew Stafford won NFL MVP last year. And Lamar and Josh both have new head coaches. So we don't know what Lamar or Josh, what their teams are going to do when it comes to the Ravens and the Bills specifically. We don't know what their teams are going to do because they have unproven new head coaches. And Patrick Mahomes is coming back from an ACL injury, and Matthew Stafford balled out last season. And because of that, I believe Joe Burrow has the most pressure when it comes to elite quarterbacks heading into the 2026 NFL season. Another reason why Joe Burrow has the most pressure, because Joe Burrow has missed the postseason in his last 3 seasons in the NFL. Joe Burrow hasn't been to the postseason since COVID. He hasn't been back to the postseason since COVID. And he hasn't been in the playoffs since Donald Trump's been in office. So Joe Burrow, if he wants to still be considered an elite quarterback, Joe Burrow he cannot miss the playoffs for a 4th consecutive season. It cannot happen. We know Joe Burrow is an elite quarterback when he's healthy. We have seen Joe Burrow lead the Cincinnati Bengals to a Super Bowl. Even though they lost to the Rams, we've seen Joe Burrow beat Patrick Mahomes in the regular season. We've seen Joe Burrow beat Patrick Mahomes in the postseason. We've seen Joe Burrow beat Josh Allen as well in the postseason. But unlike Joe Burrow, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, they have all led their teams respectively to the postseason Besides Lamar not making the playoffs last year, he had the Ravens in the playoffs the previous 2 seasons. We have all seen Lamar, Josh, and Patrick lead their teams to the playoffs and not have these playoff droughts the way that Joe Burrow has had over the last 3 seasons. And then you combine that with the fact that the Bengals organization, they made moves and they improved their defense. The Bengals will have a better defense in 2026 than they have had in the last 3 years. So Joe Burrow cannot miss the playoffs for a 4th consecutive season and be mentioned in the elite quarterback conversation. So I believe there are 5 elite quarterbacks in the NFL, and Joe Burrow has the most pressure of all 5 elite quarterbacks. Bengals organization, they made moves this offseason. The Bengals made key defensive additions to their team. They traded for Dexter Lawrence. In free agency, they went out and they signed Jonathan Allen. They went out and they signed Boya Mafe. They went out and they signed Brian Cook as well, a Super Bowl champion. And so that Bengals defense, they should be a better defense under Al Golden in 2026 than they have been in the last 3 seasons. So you combine that with the fact that Joe Burrow hasn't made the playoffs in the last 3 seasons. I think Joe Burrow has the most pressure when it comes to the quarterback position heading into the 2026 NFL season. He cannot miss the playoffs again. And again, when I look at Joe Burrow, for his career, Joe Burrow, 157 touchdowns, 51 interceptions, 2,810 passing yards, completing 68% of his passes for his career. Joe Burrow has been to multiple conference championships as quarterback of the Cincinnati Bengals. He has a Super Bowl appearance on his resume. And we know, even in college at LSU, Joe Burrow was a great quarterback and he won a national championship at the University of LSU with Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson. So we know how great Joe Burrow is as a quarterback. But the man hasn't been to the playoffs since COVID, and he hasn't been to the playoffs since Donald Trump has been in office. It is time for Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase to reach the postseason again. Bengals fans deserve it, and we deserve to see Joe Burrow's greatness be put on display in the playoffs. And so, to me, Joe Burrow has the most pressure when it comes to the elite quarterbacks on him heading into the 2026 NFL. Bengals made some great key off-season additions, trading for Dexter Lawrence, signing Jonathan Allen in free agency, signing Boya Mafe in free agency, signing Brian Cook in free agency as well. If that Bengals defense is average, if they're just average, the Bengals should be viewed as Super Bowl contenders because we know what Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins are going to do offensively. It's all about whether or not the Bengals defense can get timely stops and get the football back for their elite offense. But it's a big year for Joe Burrow and the Cincinnati Bengals. Big, big year. transition and talk about the NBA and talk about what's going on right now in Boston. Obviously, there has been noise surrounding the Boston Celtics since they got eliminated from the playoffs and blew a 3-1 lead to the Philadelphia 76ers. And so the Celtics, they lost their first round matchup against the Philadelphia 76ers after having a commanding 3-1 lead over the Sixers. It was the first time in franchise history where the Celtics lost a series when they had a 3-1 lead. And obviously, in the immediate aftermath of that first round playoff loss, the next day, Jaylen Brown came out and he basically said that this season was his favorite season of his career. He said it was his favorite season of his career. And so individuals in the media, they took that and they ran with those words, basically saying that because Jaylen Brown said that this was his favorite season of his career, they basically said that Brown was implying that he no longer wants to play alongside Jayson Tatum in Boston and would rather have his own team and have his own franchise. And basically, the media has said over the last week or week and a half, they have talked about the Celtics possibly making a move for Giannis and making a straight up trade with Jaylen Brown and Giannis that would send Giannis to Boston and send Brown to Milwaukee, and pairing up Giannis with Tatum and allowing Brown to be the face of the franchise with the Milwaukee Bucks. These are things that the media has talked about over the last week, week and a half. Brad Stevens came out. He's the general manager for the Boston Celtics. And he said that he had a conversation with Jaylen Brown, and Jaylen Brown is happy to be a part of the Boston Celtics organization. And Jaylen Brown also came out and said that he would love to play in Boston for the next 10 years and loves being a Boston Celtic. But it got me to thinking about this whole turmoil, if you want to say turmoil and noise surrounding Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum. It got me to thinking about Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum as an NBA duo. And my question for other members in the media, can we please stop trying to tear apart and break up the duo of Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown? Since Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown got drafted by the Boston Celtics, the media has been trying to tear apart their on-court relationship. And we have heard season after season after season about how the Celtics should consider breaking up Tatum and Brown as a duo. We've had seasons where Jaylen Brown, his name was brought up in trade discussions, and all Tatum and Brown, all they have done is win. Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum are the best duo in the NBA. They are the most accomplished duo in the NBA. Let's name some of the things that Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum has done as a duo since they were drafted by the Boston Celtics. Jaylen Brown, he has 6 conference finals appearances on his resume. Jayson Tatum has 5 conference championship appearances on his resume. Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum both have been to the NBA Finals twice. They are 1-1 in the NBA Finals. And Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum, since they became a duo, no other duo in the NBA has won as much as Tatum and Brown has won. Between Tatum and Brown, they have 11 conference finals appearances on their resume. They have 2 NBA finals appearances on their resume. And they also have won an NBA championship. And they both have won conference finals MVPs. Jaylen Brown, he won NBA Finals MVP in 2024. And so the Jays have had a ton of success as a duo. But for whatever reason, the media continues to push this narrative and acts as if Tatum and Brown don't enjoy playing with one another. And every single year in the offseason, as a Celtics fan, we have to listen to the media talking about how Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum may need to part ways. And I'm thinking to myself, no other NBA duo has won as much as Tatum and Brown. But we don't hear about Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray needing to part ways. We don't hear about Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns needing to part ways. We don't hear about SGA and Jalen Williams needing to part ways. We don't even hear about Maxey and Embiid. Despite Embiid being so injury prone, we don't even hear about Embiid and Maxey needing to part ways as much as we hear about Tatum and Brown. And the thing is, if you are the Boston Celtics, if you are general manager Brad Stevens, I wouldn't even entertain the idea of trading Tatum or Brown. Because the way that the Celtics are built, you got 2 dynamic wing players. That's what you need to be able to win in today's NBA. You have to have dynamic players as your wings. And I think Tatum and Brown, they are 2 of the best two-way players we have in pro basketball. I think Tatum and Brown, when they are healthy, they are both top 10 players in the sport. And so to me, even though Giannis is still a superstar, and I believe when he's healthy, Giannis is a top 3 player in the NBA, I believe Tatum and Brown, as a duo, they can win another NBA championship. And I believe Tatum and Brown should both retire as Boston Celtics. I think the Celtics have had too much success with Tatum and Brown as a duo, and I believe it would be a risk if you trade Jaylen Brown for Giannis, because we don't even know if Giannis will ever be 100%. We don't know if Giannis will ever get back to being 100% from a health standpoint. So to me, I believe you should keep Tatum and Brown together, paired up. But the Celtics do need to change their offensive philosophy. And I said this after the Celtics lost to the Sixers in the first round. I believe Joe Mazzulla should be on the hot seat heading into the 2026 NBA season. Joe Mazzulla, in the last 4 years as Boston Celtics head coach, in his first season as Celtics head coach, Joe Mazzulla, well, this was the year after Ime Udoka got fired. because in the last 4 years, the Celtics have, to me, underachieved. In the last 4 years, the Celtics have underachieved. Now, once the 1 year they did win the NBA title, okay, they beat the Mavs in 5 in the 2024 NBA Finals. But this is a Celtics team that in one series against the Miami Heat a few years ago, they were down 3-0 in that series in the Eastern Conference Finals, and they came back in that series. They forced a Game 7, but in Game 7, Tatum rolled his ankle, and that was all she wrote. And the Heat beat the Celtics 4-3, and the Heat went on to lose to the Nuggets in the NBA Finals. But the Celtics had no business being down 3-0 to a Miami Heat team that wasn't anywhere near as talented as the Celtics were. Nowhere near as talented as the Celtics were. And so the Celtics, after that season, they won the NBA title. They beat the Mavs in 5 games. On that team, it was Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum as the 2 best players. Tatum and Brown, they outplayed Kyrie and Luka in that NBA Finals. Brown wins NBA Finals MVP. Tatum leads the Celtics in all major statistical categories. And also on that team was Drew Holiday, Derek White, Al Horford, and Kristaps Porzingis. So in the second year, in these last 4 seasons under Joe Mazzulla, the Celtics won an NBA championship. We fast forward to last season. Last season, fresh off an NBA championship, the Celtics are in the conference semifinals against the Knicks. The Celtics, they blow two games in which they had 20-point leads. In games 1 and games 2 last year in the conference semifinals against the Knicks, the Celtics had 20-point leads. And they blow games 1 and games 2. And so they're down 2-0 to the Knicks. They win game 3 in New York. And then in game 4, that's the game in which Tatum, he dropped 42, but he tore his Achilles. And so the Knicks went on to beat the Celtics in 6 games. And in this season, the Celtics, they had a 3-1 lead over the Sixers. They had a 3-1 lead over the Sixers. And they allowed the Sixers to come back from a 3-1 deficit and beat them on their home floor in Game 7. And so to me, when I look at the Boston Celtics as a team, I think you have your core in Tatum and Brown. And I think the jury's still out on Derek White. I love Derek White, but I believe Derek White had a down year this year, honestly. I believe Derek White played better in prior seasons than he did this season. But I think you have your core with Tatum and Brown, but I think the Celtics should evaluate whether or not they have the right coach in place. Because I think Joe Mazzulla can coach. And I said during the season that Joe Mazzulla deserves consideration for Coach of the Year. But his offensive philosophy has hurt the Celtics in the playoffs. And in 3 out of the last 4 seasons, the Celtics have underachieved in the playoffs because they live and die by the 3. They live and die by the 3-point shot. And this year, they died shooting so many damn threes. So many threes were shot by the Celtics. They were awful in games 5, 6, and 7 against the Philadelphia 76ers. So everybody's talking about the Celtics and how they should break up Tatum and Brown, and how the Celtics should trade Jaylen Brown for Giannis straight up. No, I believe the Celtics should keep Tatum and Brown as a duo, and I believe they should evaluate whether or not Joe Mazzulla should be their head coach moving forward. I think Joe Mazzulla should be on the hot seat heading into this season. And again, I know Joe Mazzulla can coach, but to me, he's arrogant and he doesn't change up his offensive philosophy and he doesn't make adjustments. I said it during the Sixers series. There were countless times where I felt like Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum should have attacked the basket. Instead, they settled for three after three after three. And I'm thinking to myself, how, as an NBA head coach, how are you not putting Tatum and Brown in positions to be successful and basically saying, hey, guys, our three-point shots are not falling. Let's attack the rim. That way, even if we don't convert at the rim, we are able to get Embiid and Drummond in foul trouble, and we can go to the free throw line and knock down our free throws. Instead, the Celtics continue to launch three after three after three, and that's why they lost a commanding 3-1 lead to the Philadelphia 76ers. The Celtics didn't lose their 3-1 lead to the Sixers because the Sixers were so much better than the Celtics were. They lost that 3-1 lead because of their arrogance as a basketball team and the arrogance of their head coach and Joe Mazzulla. So if I'm Brad Stevens, if I'm a Celtics organization, I'm not breaking up Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum because Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum, they are the best duo in pro basketball. No other duo has accomplished what Tatum and Brown has accomplished. Let me read what Tatum and Brown have accomplished as a duo again. Between Tatum and Brown, they have 11 conference finals appearances on their resume. Brown has been to 6 conference finals. Tatum has been to 5 conference finals. And they also have won an NBA championship as a duo. So if I'm the Celtics, I'm not breaking up Tatum and Brown, but I am reevaluating whether or not Joe Mazzulla is my head coach beyond this next season, because he has to change up his offensive philosophy. His arrogance, to me, has hurt the Celtics. And in 3 out of the last 4 years, the Celtics have underachieved with Joe Mazzulla as their head coach. And it's not because Joe Mazzulla can't coach. It's because of his arrogance, believing in his offensive philosophy and believing so much in Mazzulla ball. That's why the Celtics have underachieved in 3 out of the last 4 seasons. We know with Tatum and Brown as a duo can win an NBA championship. They did it in 2024. But he has to change up his offensive philosophy and change up his game plan from an offensive standpoint. We saw the Knicks last year. Even though I felt like Tibbs got screwed, the Knicks, we saw them pivot from Tibbs to Mike Brown, because last year, the Knicks, they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. It was their first conference finals appearance in 25 years. And they still decided to move off of Tom Thibodeau. They brought in Mike Brown, and so far in the playoffs this season, the New York Knicks have been the best team in the NBA. So far in NBA, because we expected OKC to do what they have done, but we did not expect the Knicks to be playing this great. I mean, you look at the New York Knicks, the Knicks are on a 7-game winning streak. And the other night against the Sixers, they were lighting it up from 3-point range. So I give the Knicks credit, because I thought last year, they made a mistake firing Tom Thibodeau and hiring Mike Brown. But so far, it's been the right move. We got to see how the Knicks perform in the Eastern Conference Finals. But from an offensive standpoint, the Knicks have improved. And I think Mike Brown, he has helped elevate the New York Knicks offensively as a basketball team. And I don't think that Tom Thibodeau was capable of being able to do that. We know Tibbs is a great defensive mind as an NBA head coach, but Mike Brown is a great offensive mind. And Mike Brown has unlocked the Knicks' offensive potential, and we are seeing them playing at their best right now. So I think the Celtics, if they get bounced out next year in the playoffs and they have an early exit, I think they should seriously consider moving off of Joe Mazzulla. And it's crazy because I think Joe Mazzulla, I think he deserved the NBA Coach of the Year award this year. And it's not that he can't coach. He's arrogant. But those are my thoughts. He's arrogant and he doesn't want to change up his offensive philosophy. But you got Tatum and Brown over there. There's no reason why the Celtics should be shooting so many threes. You have Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum. But those are my thoughts on the Boston Celtics. I want to talk about LeBron real quick and the LA Lakers. So obviously, Monday night, the Thunder, they sent the Lakers on their Cancun journey, and the Thunder swept the Lakers 4-0 in the conference semifinals. The Thunder advanced to the Western Conference Finals. The Thunder are 8-0 so far in the playoffs this year. They pretty much have dominated the Suns and the Lakers in the first 2 rounds of the NBA playoffs. But specifically the Lakers, I want to talk about LeBron James. I believe LeBron James, at age 41, in year 23, I believe LeBron James had a successful season. I'm looking at LeBron James in his 23rd season. The man averaged 21 points per game on 52% shooting from the field, 6 rebounds, 7 assists. And to me, even at age 41, in his 23rd season, LeBron James is still better than 90% of the players in the NBA. Let me say that again for all those LeBron haters, because I'm not a LeBron fan, but I know how to recognize greatness. And LeBron James, even at age 41, in year 23, LeBron James is still better than 90% of the league. He's still better than 90% of the league. And so everybody's talking about whether or not LeBron James should retire. If LeBron wants to retire, he can retire. He's a billionaire. He has a great family with Savannah, Bryce, Bronny. He also has a younger daughter as well. If LeBron wants to retire at age 41 and go and spend time with his family and ride off into the sunset, I have no issue with that. But if we're talking about whether or not LeBron can still contribute on a championship caliber team, I believe the answer to that question is yes. And I also believe LeBron, this season, to me, I believe he had a successful season. I think he had a successful season. 21 points per game on 52% shooting from the floor, 6 rebounds, 7 assists per game. I think it was a successful season for LeBron James. And I thought this year, LeBron James, we were able to see LeBron and his versatility as a basketball player. Because there was a moment this year when Austin Reeves, Luka Doncic, and LeBron James, when they all were healthy, there was a moment where LeBron, he was the third option. But we saw Luka Doncic dealing with that hamstring injury, and we saw Reeves dealing with an oblique injury. And then we saw LeBron James take on the role of being the number one option for the Lakers this year, right? And then Austin Reeves came back. But to me, what it showed me, once Luka and Reeves went out with their injuries, what it showed me was, because here's the thing, coming into the season, the conversation was about, oh, this is probably going to be LeBron's last year in LA with the Lakers, right? And the Lakers are going to build around Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves. With how LeBron performed this season, I believe the Lakers, they should build around Luka and LeBron. I think you should use Austin Reeves as a piece that you could possibly trade to bring in some 3-and-D players. That's what the Lakers need. The Lakers need more Vanderbilts on their team than Luka Doncic. You know what I mean? Like they don't really need scoring. I think the Lakers need more defense, right? And so I believe the Lakers should use Austin Reeves as a trade piece instead of not bringing back LeBron James. I think LeBron proved this season he can still be an elite player and still help contribute on a championship team. But Austin Reeves, I love Austin Reeves. We know Austin Reeves can score the basketball and he's a dynamic scorer. But Austin Reeves, he's a liability defensively. And the thing is, I don't want Luka and Austin Reeves in my backcourt because we know Luka and Reeves are defensive liabilities. And even at age 41, LeBron is a better defender than Luka and Reeves. So to me, with how LeBron performed this season, I believe that the Lakers can build around LeBron and Luka. And they should use Austin Reeves as a piece that they are willing to trade so they can bring in some pieces to pair alongside Luka and LeBron. I believe at age 41, in year 23, LeBron James proved yet again that you can still build around LeBron James and build a championship team around LeBron. That's the thing. Like, you got those idiots out there who are speaking like LeBron James can no longer play and LeBron James is no longer a good player. No, LeBron James, even at age 41 and in year 23 in the NBA, LeBron is still better than 90% players in the NBA. That's the thing. That's the thing. Like, even at age 41 and year 23, LeBron James is still better than 90% of the NBA. And so to me, I am looking to move off of Austin Reeves instead of moving off of LeBron James this offseason if I'm Rob Pelinka and the Los Angeles Lakers. Yeah, I was thinking about that as I was watching LeBron and the Lakers in the playoffs because I know it ended bad for the Lakers. After the Lakers went up 3-1 over the Rockets, the Lakers they went 1-6 in their last 7 postseason games. The only win that they had was in Game 6 against the Rockets. But I believe the Lakers should build around Luka and LeBron. Silly me, I think LeBron is still better than 90% of the NBA. And I believe even at age 41, who's going to be 42 in December, in year 24, I think LeBron can still play at an elite level. And LeBron is a better defender than Luka and Reeves are. Now, I know LeBron is not a great defender. I don't think the Lakers have any great defenders on their roster outside of Jared Vanderbilt and maybe even Rui Hachimura. But I just think they should build around Luka and LeBron. And I believe Austin Reeves, if I'm the Lakers, I don't know if I want to give Reeves a big time contract because we know Reeves and Luka are defensive liabilities. You're not moving off of Luka. Luka is the future. But I believe the Lakers can build around Luka and LeBron. And again, I would trade Austin Reeves for some defensive additions because I think the Lakers are good offensively. I think the Lakers, from an offensive standpoint, they are still a good offensive team, even without Austin Reeves. We know Luka can drop 30, 35. I still think LeBron is good for 20, 25 on any given night. So I think LeBron, as a second option, can still help lead the Lakers back to the NBA Finals and possibly win another NBA championship. My bad. Got some calls coming through. But yeah, just on here talking about LeBron James and the Lakers. Wise Guy Sports. Everybody go and follow Wise Guys on Twitter at Wise Guys _ H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. And be sure to follow Wise Guys on Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. And here with your boy Trey Larkins on this Wednesday, May the 13th, talking some sports before this Cavs Pistons game 5 in Detroit. That series is tied at 2 games apiece. Let's talk about LeBron and the Lakers. I believe again in year 23 at age 41. Here are LeBron James stats for this past season. 21 points per game on 52% shooting from the floor, 6 rebounds per game, 7 assists per game. I believe the Lakers should re-sign LeBron and use Austin Reeves as a piece that you are open to moving so the Lakers can bring in some 3-and-D type of players. Like, that's what the Lakers need. Like, they need players like Grant Williams. He played with the Hornets. He was previously on the Boston Celtics. They need players like Grant Williams, Jaron Vanderbilt. They need players like that. The Lakers don't need another score to me. They don't need any more scoring. I think Luka Doncic and LeBron as your option A and option B with some defensive personnel. They need some defensive personnel over there in LA with the Lakers. I think that would help the Lakers and their championship aspirations. I don't think the Lakers necessarily need another star. I don't think they need another elite player. I think the Lakers need to improve from a defensive standpoint. And I think the best way to be able to trade for other players and bring in some defensive additions, I think Austin Reeves is the player that you dangle out there in trade discussions, not LeBron or moving off of LeBron. I think it would be a terrible idea if the Lakers don't resign LeBron and they sign Austin Reeves to this big contract. And now you got this backcourt of Luka Doncic and Austin Reeves, 2 players who are both defensive liabilities. I think that move would make the Lakers a worse basketball team. I think they should trade Austin Reeves and re-sign LeBron and build around Luka and LeBron. That's my thoughts. But I think LeBron, I believe he should do whatever he wants. The man is going to be 42 next season. He'll be in year 24. And I don't think LeBron James is the GOAT, but I do believe LeBron James is the GOAT when it comes to longevity. There's been no other NBA star that has played at this level for this long. LeBron James is the GOAT of longevity. And even at age 41, in year 23, LeBron James is still playing at an elite level, and he is still better than 90% of the NBA. So, I mean, if he does leave the Lakers, I think the Cavs will be perfect for LeBron. I think it will be a perfect ending for a great career to go back home and retire as a Cleveland Cavalier. And I think the Cavs with LeBron, with Donovan Mitchell, and with Evan Mobley, I think the Cavs, they would be real contenders in the Eastern Conference next year. Now, we have to see how the Cavs season ends this season, but next season, if the Cavs can sign LeBron in free agency and pair LeBron alongside Donovan Mitchell and Evan Mobley in Cleveland, I think the Cavs, with that trio of Mitchell, James, and Mobley, they would be championship contenders in the Eastern Conference next season. So that's a potential move for LeBron going back to Cleveland. If he does leave the Lakers, I don't know about the Knicks. There are people talking about the Knicks and him going to New York. I don't know how that would that move would make sense, but I don't know. We'll see what happens. But those are my thoughts on LeBron James. I think LeBron James had a successful season this year. And overall, I think LeBron's tenure as a Laker has been successful. Now, LeBron, to me, I don't consider LeBron an all-time great Laker. But I do believe LeBron's tenure as a Laker, it has been successful. It's been successful. LeBron James, as a Laker, he won an NBA championship in 2020, albeit in the bubble, but he won the championship in 2020. He was a Finals MVP as well. LeBron, he is an 8-time All-Star since he's been in LA. In 2019 and 20, he was on the first team All-NBA. And LeBron has made the playoffs in 6 of his 8 seasons in LA. So to me, no, LeBron is not an all-time great Laker. But LeBron's tenure in LA with the Lakers, it has been successful. It's been successful. We don't view LeBron as a Laker the way that we viewed Kobe or Kareem or Shaq. That's not how we view LeBron. When we talk about LeBron and how great LeBron was as a player, we are going to talk about LeBron James as a Cleveland Cavalier. Even his days in Miami, that was D Wade's team. Now, LeBron, he was the best player on those Miami Heat teams, but that was Dwayne Wade's team and Dwayne Wade's city. LeBron was never going to get the credit in Miami like he got in Cleveland. He was never going to get the credit in Miami like he got in Cleveland. That was always going to be D Wade's team and D Wade's city. LeBron's Hall of Fame and his best moments of his career are with the Cleveland Cavaliers, not the Miami Heat and not the Los Angeles Lakers. We are going to remember LeBron James as a Cleveland Cavalier. And he deserves a statue outside of the Cavs basketball arena. But everybody go follow Wise Guys on Twitter at WiseGuys_H. Also on Facebook, Wise Guys. And be sure to follow Wise Guys on Instagram at These Guys Know Sports. I'm Trey Larkins signing off of Wise Guys Sports. Y'all enjoy Cavs Pistons Game 5 tonight in Detroit. I don't know the exact percentage, but whichever team wins Game 5 in the best of 7 series usually goes on to win that particular series. So big game tonight between the Cavs and the Pistons. Y'all enjoy y'all Wednesday night. I'm Trey Larkins, signing off for Wise Guy Sports. Peace.